So I am very tickled, very pleased that you are willing to accept my invitation for us to talk a little bit about you and your history with the Institute and with EMDR and with the Detour protocol. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself so that we can get to know you. I understand that Robbie Dunton and Francine Shapiro are the founding mothers of the EMDR Institute and that you're the founding father.
Okay, well, let's see. Uh, Previously, I was a rocket scientist at Cape Canaveral, and then
Really?
I got involved with Silicon Valley, and I spent 30 years in Silicon Valley in high-tech transistors, microprocessors, computers, voice recognition. And in around 1983, I met Francine at a seminar given by John Grinder on modeling excellence, neurolinguistic programming, NLP. And we got to be good friends. We hit it off. And I had gotten interested in NLP because of business. I was director of a startup computer company. So when Francine moved to California, she had just gotten over cancer, and she moved out to California. She needed a place to stay. And I had just gotten divorced. I had a 5-bedroom home. So I gave her the back of the house and got her some jobs. And then she introduced me to Robbie, and Robbie moved into the house. And that's where EMDR started. Francine wrote her dissertation on my computer after I had to teach her how to use a computer, which was very traumatic in its own sense. And when we started doing trainings, the first training we did, I think, was in 1989. We had 19 people. Of course, now you know we have well over 100 and some thousand in many different countries. Well, when we started doing the training, I had set up the software for the institute on how to run it, and I was very visible. However, I wasn't a therapist, so I had to go back to school and get my degrees and get my license. And I had hated schools because I had flunked out of 6 or 7 different schools. But since I was visible and I'm helping people in the trainings, not knowing what the hell I was doing, I sort of snuck into EMDR the back way. After all, I was videotaping all of the trainings, and I sort of picked it up by osmosis that way. And in 1991, I had developed the Detour protocol. It was a smoking cessation protocol. And I developed that from working with clients and just throwing in a mishmash of things that I knew. I knew Solution Focus, I knew Ericksonian, I knew Satir, many of these others. And I developed a smoking cessation protocol that seemed to work. And I taught that at the EMDR Level 2 trainings and also at conferences for years. And what people would tell me is, gee, I used it for this, I used it for weight, I used it for alcohol, and it worked. So it became an addiction protocol.
Oh, so that's how it started happening.
That's how it started happening. And then I realized this is not just an addiction protocol. It works on anything that brings up urges. So it could be panic attacks, it could be anxiety, it could be damn near anything. But in the meantime, we had started the Institute, and then we started the EMDR Network newsletter, and I was the editor and publisher of that for, I think, until 1975. And that's about how it started.
I don't think I ever realized how involved you were with all of this. This is, to me, is a surprise. This is very interesting to see how far back this goes.
I was so intimidated, Esley, because here I'm with all these people that have these letters after their names and know all these words and this big language, and I'm a salesperson.
You're a rocket scientist.
and I realized that sales and therapists do the same thing.
How's that?
Well, in sales, I always taught my people that you're not selling something, you're helping people make a wise buying decision. And as a therapist, we're not selling anybody anything, we're helping them make a wise decision, which melts perfectly with EMDR and the AIP model.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So if you're giving them a choice, they're going to go towards the positive.
And I think one of the wonderful things about EMDR is that it restores the possibility of choices, that people oftentimes lose because of traumas and addictions and things like that. They've lost their ability to be able to choose wisely, and sometimes even to choose. Sometimes, the neurochemical limitations make them do things that they really didn't want to be doing. Yeah.
And that's because that, we feel that we're grown up, we're running the show. Don't realize it's that little hurt kid from back there that's really running the show, not us. You're right, that's the choices away, yes.
That's very true. I wrote a book on healing the folks who live inside, and one of those folks are those little children who,
yes, absolutely,
who often run the show without us wanting them to. So tell us a little bit about the protocol. How did it start? What are important things that we need to know about using it?
Okay. How did it start? I was working with a woman. She sent me her daughter. And she said the daughter had problems with Valium, cocaine, alcohol, marijuana. And so she came in and I said, "What would you like to work on?" And she said, "Smoking." I said, "Okay." And we did a session on smoking. And I never thought that I'd see her again. But she called me 2 weeks later and set up a meeting. And I said, "How's your cigarette smoking?" She said, "It's the same, no difference." And I'm going, "Oh boy, okay." But she said, "But one thing that I never told you was that I was strung out smoking heroin. And I haven't had a desire to smoke heroin since." I thought, whoa. Yeah, listen, if anything good takes place within 50 miles, take credit for it. But then I had to go back and figure out, what did I do?
Yeah.
And in reviewing it, it was, I never talked about smoking cigarettes. I just talked about smoking. Her system took it in for what it was necessary. It's the AIP model again.
Wow.
So that was another shot on the learning process. It was as I went, and I would keep improving it from what other people's feedback. Now I call it the AAIP model, the Accelerated Adaptive Information Processing model. And the reason for that is I use a lot of interweaves.
Yeah.
And while I'm using the interweaves, I do the bilateral.
Mm-hmm.
It seems somehow or other, it seems to slip in between the left brain and the right brain before neither of them know, and the AIP takes over.
Isn't that
So
fabulous?
I can get more therapy done in 50 minutes than a lot of people can in an hour and a half. And I only use 50-minute sessions.
Mm-hmm.
I start each one of my clients, when the client comes in, of course, the first thing I'm going to ask them is, how will you know when you're done with me?
Mm.
And then, of course, what do you want? Now, you know, when people come into therapy and you first ask them, what's your problem? The problem is staring you right in the face. Well, when I started doing EMDR, I remember sitting in watching Robbie Dunton work with one of her little kids. And she had the kid imagining playing soccer, you know, really feeling good playing soccer while she was doing the bilaterals. And so I stole that from her. And listen, called plagiarizing. If you steal from many, it's called creativity. And that's what I did. I steal from many. So what I do is I have them come in and I'll have them recall a time when they really felt fantastic, when they felt they had it all. And I'll have them tell me about it in detail. Then I'll repeat it back to them while I'm doing the bilateral and find out how that makes them feel. I get a positive, then I'll ask them, what word would you like to use to relate to that incident? That I call an anchor, a verbal auditory anchor.
Mm-hmm.
I'll feed them back that information back to them again while I'm doing the bilateral and having them say their word, and I will also feed it to them. Then I'll stop and I'll ask them to think of something somewhat sucky, not too sucky. I use very psychological terms.
I could tell.
Somewhat sucky, and get them to know what that feels like. And then I'll say, what's your power word? What's your anchor? And they'll repeat. I'll say, well, now what's happened now? Well, of course, with the AIP model, the sucky went away and the positive is there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say, well, congratulations. You now just learned how to change your emotions. Anytime you want that, you just, and when they come back again and again, I will remind them to make sure that they've used it. See, I don't believe in this RDI that they're teaching, resource development and installation, because we don't install anything in anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I also, when I'm using the bilateral, I will do at least 24 passes and I go as fast as their eyes can move. I've never had anybody switch into the negative. So I don't know where these other theories came from, but that's never worked for me. So
And,
that's the beginning.
and you work with difficult populations, you know, a
Yeah.
lot of them, people with addictions will often have dual diagnoses. They, you know, they have a lot of other complications many times. And even so, you've never had these complications.
Every addict is dual diagnosed.
Ooh.
And underneath every addiction, I found, is trauma.
Yes.
And unless you get rid of that trauma, there's going to be relapse.
Yeah. Yeah. My picture is that people have splinters in their hearts and they medicate these splinters.
Self-medicating.
And if you don't get the splinter out, they're going to have a relapse. It's a matter of time.
Yeah. You know, it's a strange thing. In Vietnam, we had a lot of our troops that were using heroin over there. And they came back stateside, and a lot of them gave up heroin, just gave it up.
Wow.
And others became more addicted. And then I looked at this Alexander. He did a project with mice. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No.
He put a mouse in a cage and water and cocaine water. And the mouse OD'd on cocaine water. He did another experiment where he put a bunch of mice in a cage with toys and stuff like that with cocaine water and regular water. And the mice went after the water only, the pure water. So he took a mouse that he had put in a cage alone, in with all of these others, and that mouse only went for the cocaine water, didn't go for the, only went for the regular water, not the cocaine water. Because it was back in a social environment. I found out that addiction, the people that get addicted are not the ones that use drugs for enjoyment or pleasure. They're the ones that use it to escape anxiety and pain. And I know I get hit over the head by a lot of addiction professionals, telling me you can't. Well, when I first started this, I was told that I couldn't use therapy with these people because they're too early in recovery. And I was working at a clinic where we had only had 90 days. And so I said, what's the reason that they said, oh, because they're going to relapse. I said, hell, they're relapsing already. What difference does it make? Well, I used it with them and it damned if it didn't work. So a lot of these old theories, like the disease model, we know it's not a disease, it's a disorder. But this has carried on and carried on, usually because of AA and the 12-step theories. Well, the 12-step theory is focusing on not using. You can't not do something. It's impossible. If I say, don't think of a pink Cadillac, what comes to mind. So I figured, okay, I'm going to have them think of something more positive to go towards. And so that's another part that I put into the detour protocol. The next step is the positive goal. What do you want? And what's it going to get you?
Just before you go on, one little thing. How soon in their recovery process do you start using a detour protocol?
When they walk in the door.
That soon? That
soon. I will not see somebody if they come in loaded. But if they use the night before, I will see them. Okay. And there's two ways that I will attack it. If I know what the trauma is, I might go to EMDR first. If I know what the behavior is, I'll probably go to detour first. Okay. I find it's a gentler way to get to the trauma with detour because you're desensitizing triggers. And as you desensitize triggers, ego strength grows. And as ego strength grows, of course, they get stronger to be able to handle things. So the first step is the positive goal. What do you want? What's it going to get you? And, trying to find a positive cognition from somebody, you'll get a lot of what they won't want. I won't want this. I won't want that. Yeah. So you have to bring it into positive. So let's say I'm working with somebody that's smoking and I'll say, well, what's it going to get you? Well, I'll have more money. Well, what are you going to do with the more money? Well, I can enjoy myself more. Well, what are you going to do that's going to be enjoying yourself more? You have to really get it to you where they can get a picture of themselves having achieved their goal. And let's say get down to, well, I'll have more energy and what are you going to be able to do with that energy? Well, I can go bike riding with the family on weekends. Ooh. Okay, so I want you to get a picture of yourself looking the way you want to look in an outfit you want to see yourself in, because a lot of people are afraid they're going to put weight on if they quit smoking.
Mm-hmm.
With your family in the park, riding the bicycles, you know, is that a good picture? If I get yes, I want to make it as desirable as possible. So I'll have them bring up that picture while I'm doing the bilaterals. And I'll say, okay, yeah, look at the way the kids are looking at you and smiling, you know, how, you know, yeah, and the way your wife is, you know, and how much energy you have, you know, you're pumping the bike and everybody's having a good time together. Is that desirable? When I get positive, I'll say, okay, now make that picture bigger. Does that make it more desirable? Bring it closer. Tilt it forward a little. Make it brighter. All while making it as desirable as possible. So what I'm doing is I'm adjusting the submodalities of visual.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
When I got it really desirable, so they're panting for it, I'll say, okay, now I want you to, I'll either touch a knuckle or I'll ask them to do this or something, and I'll say, okay, now I want you to step into that you in the picture. Notice how that feels, you know, that energy you have pumping the bike, how you smell clean, fresh. Hey, listen to what your kids and your wife are saying. Turn the volume up there. Notice how that feels. Hey, you know, the positive words you're saying to yourself. Notice how that feels. Turn the volume up. All the time I'm doing, and I'm going fast, and I will get them into it totally.
So while they're talking about these positive scenes, you're doing the movements.
I'm talking about it. I'm telling them about it, and I'm doing the movements. Yes. And that is how will you know? Remember, the first is, what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
Is how will you know? This has, we've anchored into their body
Mm-hmm.
a full feeling of success. Now, I'll tell you where I stole that from.
Where?
Tony Robbins.
Really?
Tony Robbins, I went to a seminar, Tony was there, and for a present for us, he put on a fire walk where you walk over hot coals.
Really?
And I did that, and I got on the other side. I was in tears because I did something I thought was impossible. And so I just stole his technique, because what he did was he got us all pumped up, really powerful. Then he had us get a picture of ourselves successfully on the other side. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then when we were ready, he told us, you're going to step off, and then you repeat this mantra where he says it's cool moss, as you're walking across the coal. So your eyes are up, you're in a visual mode, your mind is occupied, and you start walking across the coals, and that's it. You get across the other side, boom. Somehow or other, we adjusted the chemistry in our body to protect our feet. How? I haven't the slightest idea.
That is amazing.
But doing it with the addictions, it's like it lets the body know what it's like without the addictive substance. So that seems to cut back a lot of withdrawal.
Mm.
These are my theories in my mind, and as long as it works, you know, I'll swear by it.
That's what matters.
Yeah. So now what we have is we have their full body in what it feels like to be success, and all they have to do is touch their anchor, and that'll bring that back.
Mm.
So the next step is, how do you know when to use? What are the triggers that bring up the using? And the triggers can be a person, place, a thing, a smell. damn near anything. So I'll get a list of the triggers. Let's say one of them is a friend of his with this person. It could be every time I walk into a liquor store, or if I see drug paraphernalia. It could be when I'm lonely. It could be a certain time of the day or night. And I'll write down the triggers. And then I'll start with the first trigger. And usually if I'm doing smoking, I'll start in the morning because it's easier that way. So it's usually, well, when I have my first cup of coffee. And I'll say, okay. I said, why don't you imagine that coffee? And if necessary, I will give them a cup of coffee and let it smell it, taste it, feel the warm cup in their hand.
In your office.
Yeah. And get it to, I want to bring up the urge as strong as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now how strong is the urge to reach for cigarettes, 0 to 10? They give me a number. Where in your body you're feeling it. Same way with the EMDR.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you feeling it in your body? Okay, bring up the picture, the coffee and everything associated with it. Notice where you're feeling it. And do the bilateral until I can get the level of urge down to 0. Once I get it down to 0, then I'm going to go to the installation phase.
Right then and there, you managed to get this to 0.
Yeah, well, it'll take I'll tell you what happens while you're doing it.
Okay.
Now, it gets down to 0, then I'll have them bring up the trigger again and touch their anchor. And I'll do the bilateral. That's the installation.
Mm.
I don't have to say anything because this brings the full body of success into the installation. So now once I get the installation, then it's future template. So I'll have them close their eyes and run a movie of their handling that successfully. That cup of coffee in the morning and handling it the way that they want to. And I tell them if you run into any potholes or roadblocks, open your eyes and let me know. And if they do, I'll desensitize that. And then I'll have them run the movie again from the beginning. Each time we run into a pothole, we run the movie from the beginning until they get all the way through it. Once they get all the way through it, congratulations. You know the old song, you got to accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative?
Uh-huh.
To me, that's EMDR. You got to accentuate, latch onto the affirmative. What are you getting now? And don't mess with Mr. In Between. We don't have to know all the garbage. They know all the garbage. We don't have to know it.
That's very true. It's very true. That's one of the wonderful things I think about EMDR is we don't need to know it all. We don't need to hear it all because some of it is pretty gruesome too,
Yeah.
So I think it protects us as well when, the important thing is to get it moving. So you get a trigger,
Mm-hmm.
and then?
Okay, we desensitize one trigger. Then we go to the next trigger. And we do the same thing with the next trigger until we can get all the way through.
So when is the next time during the day you're going to have another cigarette?
Yeah, could be, when I get in my car on the way to work.
Okay.
Okay, get in your car, notice how it feels in the car, your hand on the steering wheel, and you could probably smell the smoke from the last cigarette that you smoked in your car. Get all that in. How strong is the urge now? 0 to 10. And I do the same thing for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go all the way through and do the future template on that. Then I'll start on the next one. Now, during that time, almost anything can happen.
And does.
It does, yeah. So if they start to abreact, I'll just keep on going. Because, I found out when I was facilitating, before I was a therapist, I'm facilitating at the EMDR training. Someone in the group I'm facilitating is lying on the floor spasming.
Wow.
And I'm going, holy shit, what do I do now? Somebody help me. Is there a real therapist in the house? And the only thing I could think of doing was bending over the person and keep moving your eyes, keep following my fingers. And that's all I could think of doing. And they got through it. And
Wow.
after that, it was like, oh, okay, okay. Well, let me regress a little. In the preparation phase, I
Mm.
will tell them this can get very emotional. And if it does, I'm going to keep on going. It's like if you're driving up a hill and you take your foot off the gas, you're going to end up down the bottom again. But if you keep the pedal to the metal and the hammer down, it'll take you over.
Ooh, what a nice metaphor. I like that. That's great.
I'll give you another metaphor that I use. I tell them I'm going to have them follow my wand with their eyes, focusing on something. When I stop, I'm going to ask them what they're noticing. I'm looking for change. Could be the picture's going to change. It could be memories are going to come up, or it could be body sensations are going to move around because we store things in our body. And I tell them, I don't care if you come up with Minnie Mouse in a tutu riding a surfboard in Malibu. It's your brain that's doing the change so that they don't think, oh, this is ridiculous. Okay? And the other one is the getting on a train and noticing things going by real fast. I don't want you to hold on to anything. I just want you to notice. That's it.
Hmm. Yeah, the
So,
tree metaphor is, I think, is priceless. I really like that one.
so, so they start to get real flaky or something, I'll keep on going.
Hmm.
And sometimes I'll say things like, it's old stuff from a long time ago. Why don't you let it go what old stuff is?
Hmm.
Um, or another interweave I'll use is, you've been carrying this garbage around for a long time. Why don't you drop it? You can always go back and get it if you really want it. But if it's too much to drop all at once, how about just a little, titrate it, just a little bit. Not too much, just a little bit at a time and notice what happens. That's an interweave I'll use.
Hmm.
If someone is intellectualizing and pontificating a lot and wants to talk a lot, I'll go fast. They can't think and move their eyes fast at the same time.
That is one of the advantages of eye movements I found as
Yeah,
well. They, keeps the talking down to
right.
a very minimum.
Because if someone says something, when I say, what are you noticing now? The minute I get change, I'll say, oh, that's good. Concentrate on that. And I'll stop them talking. With rapport, you can get anything from a client.
Hmm.
And hopefully you have rapport.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
unfortunately, that's the only thing they don't teach in any school.
Yeah, it's something that really has to be developed and learned. And I guess, some people are born with it. Other people have to really learn to develop it, that trust.
What I suggest, there's a book called Influencing with Integrity. It's by a lady by the name of Jeannie Laborde. You can get it on Amazon, I think, for a penny. I think shipping may cost more. You can download it.
Hmm.
And it teaches you rapport skills. It teaches you communication skills, how to communicate with people. When I was director of sales for the computer company in Silicon Valley, I had 100 sales reps. I bought each one of them a copy. And it's very simple to read, and it's the most powerful thing in gaining rapport that I ever knew.
So, going back to the protocol, the detour protocol, the emphasis is on desensitizing the triggers and developing a positive goal um, towards which we want the client to move instead of moving away from the negative and avoiding behavior. We're developing a positive goal towards which we want them to move. Is that a correct way of saying it?
Yes, and the theory of visualization has been around for a long time. What you're visualizing, where your mind is going, your body's going to go.
Yeah, monkey see, monkey do. Observation is transformation. That's very, very true. Now tell me, are there situations where you would not use a detour, where there's special care, or um, some of the things that you think that, might complicate things? What should people, look out for?
Uh, you never know. We never know what's going to come up. In the 30 years that I've been doing EMD, 30 years, 29 years that I've been doing EMDR, I've never lost a client. And I have had some of the, now with multiples, with DID, it's a different story. We're dealing with a lot of different parts. So you need to use the DID protocol and intermix detour with it.
So you can use a detour protocol even if the person has a DID diagnosis.
Right, because maybe only one of those are an addict. You know that, remember there was a research thing that they did years ago on a DID where they tested her for diabetes, and only one of the alters tested diabetic, the others didn't.
Isn't that amazing? That is so uncanny.
Same body.
It's amazing how that can happen, but it's true. Okay. Who will benefit from this protocol? What kinds of populations?
Anyone in a population that's addicted. To me, an addiction is any thing that gets in the way of a person coping and functioning successfully in life. Because to me, the purpose of therapy is to get them coping and functioning successfully in life, according to their terms, not my terms, according to their terms. So if somebody that has anxiety disorders, and you could find out when they first learned to be anxious, then I would use EMDR. But there are times when I switch back and forth between detour and EMDR.
What are some of the criteria you would use to switch back and forth? When would you use the one, and when would you use the other?
Well, if I feel that there's a part in there that's getting in the way, then I'll throw in an interweave. Says, that part that that got hurt back there, and how that part really protected you, came up with ways to protect you. I'm wondering if that part realizes that it hasn't grown with you, and it's getting in the way now. And if that part could either check with other parts or find a way to grow up with you to help now, because all parts have a positive intent.
Yes, that's very true.
And so what we're doing, that's my
they're all trying to help.
Yeah, my ego state interweave. I have an interweave that's an inner child. That is, go back and sit next to that younger you. Put your arm around them and let them know how much they're cared for, and tell them the things that they would have needed to hear back then. I don't have to say anything. They know all this stuff.
Yeah.
What's some of the other ones? Another one, interweave, I'll say things like, the past is where we learn, and all these while I'm doing bilateral.
Okay.
Where we learn things. Some of it's tough learning. Some of it's easy learning. But all the learnings from the past are gifts that we bring into today. That's why we call today the present. Where we can take all of these gifts and we can arrange them and figure out how we want the future to be. That's our choice. AIP model.
Off we go.
Yeah. So, and they pop up. I imagine there's less than 12 interweaves that I use that can cover every damn possible thing. And if something opens up to the trauma, if I'm doing EMDR and something opens up to the trauma, then I'll switch over to EMDR and I'll use the EMDR protocol, because we know the addictions are all tied with a neural network.
Mm-hmm.
That trauma.
Yeah.
So this is another way into the trauma.
Mm-hmm. One thing we hadn't addressed, you mentioned it slightly, that do they have to be in abstinence? I mean, do they have to quit using in order for us to use this, or will you use the protocol even if the person is continuing to use?
If they're continuing to use, abstinence is not necessary in this protocol. After the first session, and I let them know that this goes on after they leave here, and they may not notice different things. And if you have the urge, I want you to notice where and how you're feeling it in your body, and I want you to press your anchor. If you still have the urges to use, notice what's happening at the time. I don't like to harp on relapse, because this population has been beat up on relapse for a long time.
Yeah.
I say, this is like peeling an artichoke. We'll peel some of the leaves off, and there may be some underneath. Those are new targets of opportunity for us to address. And we'll keep peeling the leaves off until we get to the heart of the matter.
Very good. I like that.
Okay.
Okay, our time's run is coming to an end. Are there some final recommendations that you would like to make to therapists in Latin America about this?
Vaya con Dios.
Your Spanish is very good.
No, I just say use it.
Okay.
Go forth and heal, because that's a hell of a population out there.
It
and
is.
The more that I can spread this to other people, the better the world's going to be.
That's so true. I did my master's thesis on the sociometric structure of alcoholic families. It was back when I did psychodrama and sociometry, before I discovered EMDR. And one of the things that we read in the papers was that 10% of the Brazilian population is alcoholic. 10%. Oh. If you attach 4 or 5 people, their family members, to this person, we're talking half of the population. So if we have 205 million people in Brazil, we have 100 million people affected directly or indirectly by alcoholism alone. We're not even talking about other, substance abuses. And we know that there are other populations in Hispanic America as well, Native American and indigenous populations, where this is an even higher number. So I just really want you to know the impact that this protocol can have in our populations, because we do have a very large incidence, and I'm just talking alcoholism. We're not even talking drug addiction and, compulsive eating, compulsive sex, pornography, all of these other things that have come up, as modern day times have developed, all of these other things that are there too. It's not just smoking anymore, it's not just smoking cigarettes.
The other thing is, a lot of people feel that alcohol is genetic. My grandfather was, my father was. To me, that's not genetic, that's modeling. Mm-hmm. They learn to do that. It's not in their genes.
Yeah. One of the studies I read was interesting, because it said that alcoholics tended to come from 2 kinds of families. Alcoholic families, which obviously model drinking, and totally abstinent families that never, ever, ever, ever drank a drop. And their theory was that they never learned the model of control. They never learned to drink just one. which is the model of control.
Yeah, but it's pretty tough to have the model of control when you've got all this anxiety coming up and this pain coming up, and you take one and oh man, that's a little bit of
that really feels better.
And then all of a sudden it becomes a learning behavior.
Yeah, and then it goes there. Well, I just want to thank you so much for all of your contribution today, and I know that I'm speaking for everybody else who will be listening to you and who will be learning from you. We're translating the protocol into Portuguese and into Spanish, and we're going to make it available to them along with this interview and your explanations. And it was just really nice to get to know you and hear it straight from you, learning it straight from you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And send me a copy in Portugal and Spanish. Okay.
Okie doke.
Thanks. Keep up the good work down there.
All righty. Thank you.